Somebody wants you to go through system.
All right.
You continue and continue, your approvals, approval. The TV that should have been 40,000 in the shops ends up being 300,000. Is that what we want for a country? If you take a capable officer from the defense forces,
All right.
from the Air Force, or from the Army, or from the Navy, and tell him, come help us run this institution, as an individual, that's not the army running it. There's nothing more. The cow no longer has any milk. The next thing is for them to cut the udder, ile matiti, and they roast it, and the cow will die.
All right.
Let them enjoy what they have stolen. And I've said this before. They can enjoy what they have stolen. Stop stealing so that we can start afresh and this country can move forward.
And you're just in time for yet another edition of Business Glide here on Herman Manyora's channel. My name is Richard Mwenja. Now, half the time we see Kenyan parastatals or state corporations here to thrust the economy into the international arena. Now, what has derailed them this far? Is it a case of regulators overstepping their mandate in as far as oversight is concerned? Or should we question their existence in the first place? To bring this conversation home, I'm joined by none other than public scholar Herman Manyora. Professor, welcome on set.
Thank you.
All right. Recently, Professor, we saw a presidential task force formed by President Kenyatta, which was to steer parastatal reforms. And this culminated in the birth of the Mwongozo Code of Governance for State Corporations. This far, a couple of years later, how well has it performed?
I'm yet to notice anything reasonable.
All right, but it was chaired by very prominent people. We saw the head of civil service then, Joseph Kinyua, and Abdikadir Mohamed as the co-chairperson. They came with really good policies on paper. Would you say, considering the context of Kenya Power, Kenya Airways, Kenya Railways Authority, out of 10, what do you rank the performance of the Code of Governance?
3.
3 out of 10?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you not a prophet of doom towards the state reforms?
Even then, I'm being very fair.
Really?
Because which parastatal have you seen performing in this country? Just one, name one. None.
Kenya?
They are all guzzlers, being bailed out every time.
All right.
None of them is performing anything.
All right. In the second quarter of this year, we saw global lender IMF extend a loan facility to Kenya. It was in upwards of 250 billion Kenya shillings. And part of the conditions were to restructure Kenyan state corporations. Now, if we go full throttle on restructuring, don't you see a case whereby many Kenyans are staring at job losses? And how do we considerably fix this?
The solutions from IMF have never worked for Africa.
All right.
From as early as 1980s, the early 80s, with the Lome Convention and all those things that gave birth to structural adjustment programs.
All right.
None of them has worked. They are never well-intentioned. None of them has worked. So I don't expect anything from the World Bank and IMF to work for Africa. Nothing. People lose their jobs in very useless schemes. A parastatal sacks people, they go home. 2 years down the line, they have employed double the number of those they sacked. You see what I'm talking about?
All right.
And one thing is normally very sad for me. It will lead not just in job losses. They will ask us to sell, dispose of certain state corporations.
All right.
At a song. So you find a state corporation that has assets in excess of billion, say 20, 30, 40, 50 billion.
All right.
Is being sold for 900 million shillings. You know, I have no faith in those institutions.
All right. If we are to look at the oversight role of entities towards these state corporations, you will see we have the State Corporation Advisory Committee, we have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Committee in there, we have the Inspectorate of Public Parastatals, amongst many others. Now, don't you see that these are duplication of roles in as far as oversight is concerned?
They are not duplicating roles. All these are smoke screens. I have told you repeatedly. A country that intends to fight corruption or theft of public money, like our case is not corruption. It's just raw theft, simple theft. If you have no intention of fighting corruption, you set up institutions like EACC. Those who want to fight don't have those institutions. They just arrest a thief and put him in jail. You don't need an EACC. You don't need all these bodies and regulatory bodies and this and the other. That is those who are engaged in games, who are not sincere, who have no intention at all of making state corporations function.
All right.
They want to kill them, then sell them for a song, then they buy them themselves. There's absolutely no intention of fighting any of these ills.
All right, sir. The highly profiled Mwongozo Code of Governance for State Corporations. So the Board of State Corporations been mandated to put in place whistleblowing mechanisms that we will see we don't have victimization of whistleblowers or people who come forth and disclose information of malpractices in good faith. However, if you play the case of Masai Mara University in this context, how have we fared on the side of ensuring we protect our whistleblowers in these very state corporations?
Who want you, if you try to become a whistleblower in this country, you'll get into problems. Then Kinyeki, whatever he is, he died.
Yeah, true.
This is not a country. This country is not conducive for that. This is a country which is controlled by crooks. They will finish you. You see, for state corporations, the first question is, do we want a state corporation to perform? Number one. The answer is always no. When we hire you as a CEO, Richard, do we want you to perform? No. We want you to let us have a field day in mining and milking that state corporation. We want all the contracts, we want all the tenders, and mark you, something that should cost 50 million must be 2 billion. And you must sanction all that. You must be there to see it is done. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, true.
If we want state corporations to deliver on their mandate, then they will deliver on their mandate. You don't need any of these agencies you are mentioning. They will deliver on their mandate. If we want Richard to run a state corporation and we recruit the right person, we must also not use state corporations as we do now to reward our cronies.
All right.
The man who occupies State House from 1963 up to now, whenever you use those positions to reward cronies, people who helped you in politics, for tribal support and stabilizing. That's why I was liking this BBI. It will make those things less necessary. You get it? Because then we were restructuring and re-engineering our governance so that the president in State House relies less and less on his people.
True.
So certain institutions would work. So if we want a state corporation to work, it will work. Because we will allow it to deliver on its mandate.
All right.
Number two, we will recruit the best man or woman for that particular job. You get it? And then we will let him function without encumbrances. As it were, nobody wants those things to work.
All right. We see board members of state corporations being mandated to exercise independence in their judgment and execution of our duties. But there is a conflict here, whereby at times they do their duties responding to the appointing authorities or nominating authorities, as opposed to the organization being loyal to the organization. Going ahead, how can we change tact in terms of appointments to parastatal heads and state corporations so that it becomes appointments based on competency, not rather than political leanings and association?
There are two ways.
All right.
One is to let the system run the way it is running,
all right,
and it is doomed to fail. The other one is to depart from the past. Let state corporations do that which they were formed to do without interference from the government.
All right.
As it were today, even if you are the best CEO,
all right,
you'll have to accede to a lot of useless things and demands from the parent ministry. If the ministry in charge of education can still micromanage universities of all places, which state corporation can be micromanaged if they can micromanage universities? You get what I'm saying? So that before a vice chancellor does something, they look behind what is the minister saying. Even simple recruitment, you can't allow universities to recruit senior managers. You want the public service to do it. You see those kind of things.
All right.
You saw recently there were reforms and restructuring at the University of Nairobi.
True.
And the vice chancellor has had a lot of problems. Some of the things are coming even from the ministry. He wants perhaps to increase fees, and I'm not saying the best thing to do. I firmly believe university students should not pay any fees. But while they are paying fees, because the government is not supporting universities, then those fees, those payments, those fees must be realistic. The ministry itself puts in place a system of determining fees. When the University of Nairobi uses the same, the ministry turns against them and sides with the public and the students. You see that kind of thing. How then will you run a university? You get it? You restructure, And the same government comes to you to tell you you are doing the wrong thing without proper engagement. Even if there were challenges, again, in terms of how the universities themselves get into those programs.
All right.
So what I'm saying is, I do not see the will from the government to allow a state corporation to deliver on its mandate.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, sir, we saw recently, about a week ago, President Kenyatta made appointments of chairpersons to state corporations. And surprisingly, we saw a number of retired KDF generals, military generals, making it to the list. Talk of James Arwasa, Major General retired Andrew Kenye, and a host of others who've been serving there. Talk of Julius Karangi, who is at NHIF. Going ahead, NSSF, going ahead, take into context the highly decorated officers who've made a successful career in the military and even in public entities like Kenya Meat Commission. Should we militarize most of these state corporations? Because we can literally bank on KDF officers other than our public sector servants.
You know, Kenyans sometimes, I don't understand. When you appoint an army general officer to run something, it does not militarize. To militarize something is a different story.
All right.
Is to take the army, to tell the army take over. If you take a capable officer from the defense forces,
all right,
from the Air Force or from the Army or from the Navy, and tell him, come help us run this institution, as an individual, that's not the army running it. No, we have not turned Kenya Meat Commission to a barrack. General Badi running in Nairobi City, whatever it's called, have you seen him with uniformed men running in Nairobi City Council?
Not really.
Not really. So it's just an individual the president has identified as being careful. It is only by what I might call a coincidence,
all right,
that they happen to perform well. And not surprising because of the training of the military.
And
these are disciplined fellows. They are trained to put their eye on the job.
All right.
You see, they are less worried about riches like the rest of us outside there. When you are in the military, you likely look at one thing and want to do it well, just like you'll fight in a war. True. And deliver on that and make sure there's victory ahead for you. And that's why when our soldiers are on foreign missions, you see how much they shine.
True.
So if you can see that they are good people and you take one of them and place somewhere, that's not militarizing.
So you recommend we have a number of them?
That's not, in fact, unknown to many people. Look at the Industrial Production Act in America.
True.
And that's why Kenya sometimes, I don't understand how. The military is called in occasionally to do certain things. And there's an act of parliament that. If you look at what you call a crisis, when there are disasters, there are various stages of disaster, from stage 1 to stage 5. You know, something either whether it's a drought, whether it's calamity of whatever source, whether it is corona, whatever. If it gets to the red, I think it's stage 5, universally agreed it is only the army that come in when a crisis or a disaster has reached, I think, stage 5 or something like that. Only they can do it because of the training and the discipline and the precision with which they approach a task. You get it? So if you can draw from the army 1 or 2 fellows to bring that training to bear on a task, I see no problem. And it is done everywhere in the world.
All right, coming to the tail, sir. State corporations, majority of them, not all of them, but majority, have profiled themselves as the infamous homes of procurement graft. Yet we have the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority in the picture. Going ahead, do you see a change in tact in terms of procurement process in state corporations, making them more transparent and accountable, other than now being the go-to point for procurement graft? You know, parastatals, let me tell you.
All right. Those in authority put you in a parastatal so that you are the point man there in matters of graft, so that you give them all the tenders, all the contracts. You get it? So that you employ their people. That's why they put you there.
But the regulator is there.
The regulator is part of them. The regulator is part of the system. And the system is the one that is giving you a job to do it on behalf of the system, which means to milk the parastatal dry. You get what I'm saying?
All right.
So it really... And look, for example, talking of parastatal, and I think the entire public service in general.
All right.
You don't need these procurement people. You don't need the procurement authority. You don't need... I want Kenyans to think, and we are lazy, and I keep saying this. We don't need any procurement in any government department. Those are the ones responsible for all the corruption, all the rot.
Then how do we source for our supplies?
You, Richard,
all right,
are a CEO.
True.
You want to buy a television for the
Company.
you know, there's a VIP room, whatever.
All right.
You just go and buy from the shop in town and put it there. Somebody wants you to go through system.
All right.
You continue and continue, your approval. The TV that should have been 40,000 in the shops ends up being 300,000. Is that what we want for a country?
No, not absolutely.
It is so simple. Let us assume Manyora is a CEO of a certain organization.
All right.
State corporation.
Say Kenya Power.
I want to buy 5 vehicles.
All right.
Let it be known that you not buy beyond certain brands. Let's say Toyota.
All right.
You can only buy a Toyota or a Mercedes. These established, no-nonsense brands. They may look expensive, but in the long run, they are cheaper because they are durable, because you cannot corrupt them when in the process of procurement. So you say, if you want a Toyota, just go and buy the Toyota you want from Toyota Kenya. But there is a system that checks. If that Toyota is 12 million, the Toyota people,
all right,
we will check in the system that particular item, that particular vehicle, how many came? Was it just one? No. There were 20. What price did Toyota sell it to the public? Because we know. Because they are paying taxes for it.
All right.
They cannot have been selling the 19 items of the Toyota at 8 million and they have sold it to government at 15 million. You see how we check? It's just a system through the taxman. So you just go and buy the Toyota because they will sell you. It can only be cheaper than they are selling to the owner because you are taking more. It cannot be more than what they sell to the public. And that you just check through a system. If you go and buy a TV from Sony, it is 60. That item did not come as one. There is a batch with which it comes. And they pay taxes using that batch. You can go to KRA and see what was the cost, what were the taxes, and therefore through ETR, electronic tax, everything they sold, all other pieces they sold, there was an ETR receipt for them. So the price is known. How come they have sold 8 of the same at 40,000 and they are selling you at 100? You don't need a procurement officer, you just need to think. And that's why I'm saying this country, if we continue being lazy and afraid of thinking, this country will collapse. This country requires men and women who can think on their feet for this country. You don't need a procurement department, no.
All right, the very last, Professor, we have seen massive reputational failure for majority state corporations.
Yes.
Now, case in point, the ongoing Kenya Power issue. And this has scared many investors from partnering with these state corporations.
Yes.
Now, how do we clean ourselves from this mess and just get that good vibe going on that will bring more investors on board?
Yeah, a very good example of Kenya Power. You see, it affects investment.
True.
Because of the corruption that is going on and the games, electricity is so expensive. And no investor will want to come and invest here, knowing so well the electricity is so expensive.
True.
It is so necessary, yet too expensive. By lowering the tariffs, by lowering the cost of electricity to reasonable levels, you can spur economic growth through investment.
And graft issues as well.
So you need to be serious as a country. Say, look here, we are strangling ourselves into a slow death. We are almost reaching the point of no return. Can't we be satisfied with what we have stolen so far? Because the people who steal from us, they are just a small, closed class. You and I can't penetrate that class. The people who have been stealing from us from 63 are still the same ones. It is time for them to realize there's nothing more. The cow no longer has any milk. The next thing is for them to cut the udder, ile matiti, and they roast it, and the cow will die.
All right.
Let them enjoy what they have stolen. And I've said this before. They can enjoy what they have stolen. Stop stealing so that we can start afresh and this country can move forward.
All right. Well, that takes us to the wrap of our conversation today on the state of state corporations. But before we leave, as usual, it is time we give credits to our fan of the week. And Professor, our fan of the week on this edition is Yusla Munoru. Please, your credits to her.
Munoru, thank you very much for being with us.
Yusla.
Yuslam.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Yuslam, for being with us, for noticing us and for following us.
All right.
We say kudos.
All right. Well, should we not put policy actions that will see revamping and revitalizing of state corporations, then as a nation, we are sleepwalking to national disaster. Until next time on Business Glide, my name is Richard Mwanja.